all the late breaking news, the same information you expect from us every single day. I'm Chris Spags, joined again by one of the smartest men in the world of daily NBA analysis, Mr. Fast Eddie Fear. How are you doing, Eddie?
I'm great. It's been a good week. We hit very hard again yesterday, so it's been as much as I like to talk myself up, we've been incredibly lucky this week, where like all the bold calls have worked out, which will regress at some point, but it's been a spectacular week. Made some real life-changing dollars for a lot of people, so let's keep that up tonight.
Yeah, and I will give you your full credit, by the way. But first, let's give a little bit of a shout out to Thrive Fantasy as well. They are sponsoring the show, of course, one of the premier DFS sites out there. It's a new DFS app, actually, where players will draft a lineup built only of prop bets of top-tier athletes. You pick 10 props out of the 20. The less probable a prop is to occur, the more points it's worth, and that's where the game theory comes in. So go click the link I'm going to drop in the YouTube chat right now. It's bit.ly/awesomeo, and you get a really good deposit bonus there as well. You get $10 on a $10 deposit, $20 on a $100 deposit, and $50 on $200 or more, and that's fast release. You get it right away. So go check out Thrive now. They support the show because they do support us, please. And let's go talk about one of the guys there who has an interesting prop bet. Mr. Bradley Beal, Eddie. So this is an interesting game versus the Bucks. Got Bradley Beal with an over-under of 23.5 points. If you go over, you get 9, under, you get 110. Where are you going with Mr. Beal?
I'll barely take the under. That's about what I have him projected for. And obviously there's some reasonable chance of a blowout here, so I think I do want to go under on that if it's weighted.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. The weighting is also where I would go as well. I have him projected for 22.2 points. And I think, the extra little bonus points for picking the under there seems logical. So that's our Thrive pick of the day, or at least the first one. So go check it out now. Click the link bit.ly/awesomeo. Let's go celebrate Bradley Beal not scoring over 23.5 points. Eddie, tell me a little bit about this game here, because this is one I talked about in the video I did today, a little short form video called The Four Corners, which is also on our channel. I think this game's pretty interesting with the Washington Wizards and the Bucks. I don't know why I gave them the full name. I think Beal's in a good spot, but I like the peripheral pieces more. I think they're going to have to do a lot to stay in this game, and I think they actually have a decent shot of hanging with the Bucks. How are you feeling about their prospects going into Milwaukee?
I'm concerned. This is a Bucks team that's really come into their own and handled their business a lot recently, and I'm not super convinced that the Wizards take this day, to decide to all of a sudden become competent on the road in a difficult matchup. I still think that especially on DraftKings, but on a couple sites, the juice is worth the squeeze on a couple of these guys. But it's a game I really like game stacking, because there are a lot of guys who, if the starters play 3 quarters, I think that they're probably, in the most frequent case, not productive enough. But if they play 4, they can get over those prices. So it does end up being site dependent. And I certainly don't mind, taking a piece. But I am concerned with the outcome to a certain degree. But especially on DK, where you're saving significantly on the supplemental pieces. And usually you'll be talking about, when you say that, Satoransky, Ariza, Porter, and even Jeff Green, who normally we can be a little concerned about the minutes, but this really seems like a situation in which he should get 30, 32, should close it out at center. All those guys make a lot of sense on DraftKings. They're all like $1,000 more on FanDuel. That makes them, a little stickier. They're also pretty attractive on Yahoo. So I like playing a ton of guys from this game. I don't mind playing a guy from this game, but I feel like almost any medium commitment is not as ideal. Obviously, there are situations in which this game stays close and only 2 guys are good. This game blows out and 2 guys are still good. Beal and or Giannis get there. One of the supplemental pieces gets there in 3 quarters. But I haven't looked at the ownership yet. I imagine we have Porter most chalky of the supplemental pieces I just mentioned. At that point, I would probably rather go with Satoransky again. And I don't mind Jordan McCrae, who's apparently the guy everybody is talking about today, because I feel like I've looked at
all the ball after a good game.
I looked on our premium Slack chat about 11 times today, and Michael Jordan McCrae is being fairly constantly mentioned in a contentious sense. What do we have him projected at for the ownership? Because that's really where I'm gonna, like, if his number begins with a 2, for example, I'll have no interest. There's lots of cheap guys I think have an upside today, but he is one of them, and I'm interested in the discussion. I'm curious where everyone else came out. All I know is that some people really disagreed with some other people. A lot on
so
both sides.
Right now we've got them at under 1%, unless there's been an ownership update, which I missed. Let me just double check. You know what? There's actually one that just came through a few minutes ago. So you keep talking, I'll update.
Okay. So here's the thing with Jordan McCrae. Some of his run has been an artifact of specifically one game, the foul trouble that
So
Bradley.
just real fast, still under 1%. So we're good there.
I like him a lot at under 1%. There's just a number of ways he get there. One of the pieces of information that I don't think has been made as public is that Scotty Brooks said that he is sort of intentionally sitting Satoransky at the end of games, which I find mind-numbingly stupid. But I reached out to, I'm forgetting his name, and that bothers me because I like to give credit where credit is due. But I reached out for the guy who writes for the DC Athletic. I'll look it up in a second and give him his due credit. And said, has Brooks spoken about why Satoransky is not in the game at the end of close games? Again, one of the last games, I liked Satoransky, and I was touting somewhat tongue-in-cheek that I have like 100% record on Satoransky. I've liked him 5 days this year, and he's been exceptional all 5 days. And I liked him that day, and he only played 29 minutes and sat on the bench for the last 10 minutes of a really close game when he was like 2 assists and 3 rebounds from a triple-double. Now, he was still very much worth his price, but very frustrating to see that happen, so I reached out to a couple people, and one wrote back and said, yeah, Brooks specifically said he wanted him on the bench for more scoring. Which, I guess, you don't set your better players and your better distributors to get more scoring. Like, you can do it. You let Beal run the point. It still seems not ideal for me. But long story short being, I do not believe all the Jordan McCrae run is the artifact of blowouts and bullshit. And we can look to, a couple of recent games where the score was close and he was still out there gunning in the fourth quarter and Satoransky had his ass glued to the bench. So, if it's 1%, which I don't think it is, I think it's probably 5%. But if it's 5% at $3,400 or min price on Yahoo or droppable on FanDuel, I'm fine with it. I'm absolutely fine with it if he comes in at single-digit ownership. He will play almost certainly, although I wouldn't give 100% on that, but I bet like 8-1 he sees the court. And his minutes are going to be anywhere from 11 to 25, depending on what kind of blowout you're going to see. But I can get behind that. I like the matchup for him. And obviously correlates negatively with playing starters in this game. And, would be one of my favorite bench pieces to look at here. If I was looking over at Milwaukee, if you're going to take a bench piece there, it's probably DJ Wilson, who plays in the rotation and plays in blowouts, and is really the only guy with that distinction. So he would correlate well with Jordan McCrae and negatively with any of the starters in this game. So, yeah, of the starters themselves, I think I'd slightly prefer. What's our ownership on those supplemental pieces on DK? If you
on DK, so for the Milwaukee side or the Washington side?
The Washington side.
For the Washington side, we have Bradley Beal's at 11%, Ariza at 10%, Otto Porter at 14%, my guy Jeff Green at 3%, and Sato at 2%.
I really like Jeff Green and Sato then. Like, assuming those numbers are correct, and they're usually very, very close because our ownership projections are still unbelievably good to me. And I say that, I don't know, I just frequently look at our ownership projections. I'm like, that's amazing. Like, I think they're better than I am, and I think I'm generally good at what I do. And that's the first time I looked at ownership projections. I'm like, I think just in general, they're more accurate than I am, and all I do is look at this shit for 9 hours a day. So, which is just to say, I don't know how it's done. Like, I really don't know how it's done. Most things, I say, here's my algorithm. I know how your algorithm works. Or, here's my projections for this.
That goes into each ownership projection, Eddie.
Sorry?
There's a little bit of love that goes into each ownership projection.
That's if I found out that it was, fairies or elves or underpants gnomes or something, I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. Because it really should amortize and collect all sorts of interesting data from Twitter conversations to what's talked about on these other sites and who they like. So all this again, and so they're more accurate than I think they should be able to be, not using sorcery. But anyhow, agreeing that you're probably going to get single-digit ownership on Green and Satoransky. Yeah, I really like those guys, especially at their DK prices. FanDuel, I probably do have Ariza coming a hair before Sato, but yeah, $5,000 Jeff Green. Certainly, if the game stays close, I think plays 31 minutes. Item projected for in this game. And Sato, I think gets his 30 and is a fine spot for him. And in one of the earlier matchups, he did go off. He had one of his random 50s. I liked him in his first game against the Bucks this year, and he did drop a hammer. So,
and a triple double.
Yep. Was that his triple double? That may have been it. That was it. You're right. That was the one I had forgotten. But
and Jeff Green's been shooting a lot. I just want to point out real fast, 16, 17, and 19 shots in his last 3 games.
Yeah, I really, and it's a matchup when he should be out there. Looking at the other side, I really like Brook Lopez. That being said, he ends up being my third favorite of centers I really like in that 5K range. I really like Brook Lopez. Number 2 for me would be Jared Allen. And number 1 for me would be Willie Cauley-Stein. But I really like having some exposure to all those guys in tournaments. And if I was building a massive number of lineups, I would have some significant amount of all those guys, DraftKings especially, DK, FanDuel, they're all priced a little bit, whereas Yahoo's, they're all priced great. But all the centers are really priced really great, so it's a little different there. But being DK-centric, I really like Brook Lopez. It is a phenomenal spot for him. The upside is massive. You do need the game to stay closer. His ass is going to play 24 minutes. Someone just said, how many Washington players can you play? If you're willing to run it back with Giannis, or at least a Bledsoe or a Middleton in your life, as many as you want, really. This is a fine game to stack. If it stays close, it's a fine fantasy environment. It really depends, site environment, cash, GPP, stuff like that. I prefer Bledsoe to Middleton, even at their respective prices, though it's very close on FanDuel where that differential is particularly large. Brogdon, for me, again, is sort of the cash place to go in this game, the upside being a little bit more muted. Lopez in tournaments, and DJ Wilson, the blowout guy you want if you want a piece of this game for a couple of reasons. Really like DJ Wilson. He would be one of, it ends up being site dependent, but I would rather play him over the Spurs guys, I think. Again, this is a lot going to come down to ownership. I'm actually going to load the ownership myself because a lot of things on today is very, keep your damn head on a swivel kind of day, because we will get some bullshit news at some point in the next 40 minutes because we have a trade deadline in 20 hours. Cheap plug. Myself and the inimitable, the redoubtable, the best, Josh Engelman, will be on from 2 to 3, streaming up to the trade deadline lock, breaking down the trades over the last couple days and shit that comes in as we hit the wire. But the proximity to that trade deadline makes tonight really the most interesting DFS night of the year. And I want to get through all the questions and stuff early because shit is going to get hairy at about 7:10, 7:20, and I want to be able to roll with some punches. But this game, I guess we got all of that.
Yeah, we got some news too. Paul Millsap out, Jamal Murray available. Also, Julius Randle available off the bench today. Talk to me about the Nuggets first. The assumption would be that Mason Plumlee will enter the starting lineup again. How are we feeling about the prospects? And also, how does Jamal Murray affect everything for those guys?
I presume Jamal Murray will start. Based on what I've been reading from beat reporters all day, and expected Millsap to be out, unsurprising there. Worth pointing out, the Hornets, the only team on the back end of a back-to-back. The Spurs, as you probably noticed, the only team on the front end of a back-to-back, and we should go there next. For the Nuggets, so having Jamal Murray back to whatever extent pretty much kills Monty Morris. He's now just generally not going to be worth his price. Gary Harris is still out, so Malik Beasley's still doable where he's 5,100. That's a bit of an ownership play, but I can still get behind that. It's obviously a fine matchup. The pace in that game should be pretty exceptional. I like a number of guys in that game, both sides of the ball. We'll get back there, but I love Jokic. Jokic is my favorite spend-up by a significant margin. Now, he was my favorite spend-up the other day against Detroit, and Lyles ended up being good, and Plumlee ended up being good, and Jokic got in foul trouble, and then they got blown out by the Pistons, which was unexpected by me, obviously. But assuming this game stays close, and again, it's basically a pick 'em. I don't know what the line is, but it's a point or two either way, I'm sure. He's my favorite play per dollar pretty significantly. I have him projected for 62. So that's pretty good when you cost less than 11. So, I love Jokic. Having Murray in there, Sans Harris should not change that significantly. And this is actually, if you went back, I forgot this, but come to think of it, when they played at the beginning of this year, you had no Barton, but you had Murray and Harris, and Jokic had 70-something, unsurprisingly. So this is about as good as it's going to get for Jokic. I can't get past it, so I would rather play him than Giannis. I would rather play him than Harden at their prices. Now, again, center spot obviously carries with it a significant penalty when you use it on him on FanDuel, although there's not a ton of other centers I super like at their prices, but you can't play $5,000 Mason Plumlee if you play 10-8. But I mean, he is especially underpriced on FanDuel. DK, he's closer to where he should be. Yahoo, you have 2 center spots, and he actually costs a pile of money as opposed to other centers who are like $10, $12, $14 underpriced, including $13 Mason Plumlee. DK, you don't really have that great of a reason not to play him, except to say there are a lot of guys who cost 5, 6, 7K I really like. So he's not a must-play by any means. And there's a slight negative correlation with Mason Plumlee, who I expect to be freakishly popular, and having him provides some sort of leverage, although it's weird to leverage with the much more popular play. But yeah, I love him a lot. And I don't mind Trey Lyles. A lot has been made about how Trey Lyles sort of got lucky last game. That's true. There was a blowout. That's not always going to happen. Jokic was in foul trouble, making Plumlee play more center. That's not always going to happen. But there was the fact that against Detroit, they run really, really big. I don't think the minutes will be as pushed towards Plumlee at the expense of Lyles in general. Now, Lyles isn't someone they throw a pile of minutes at, but I don't think you generally get 18, 20-minute Lyles, which is what he was on pace for before the blowout. I think you generally get closer to 23 or 24, and that was more of a matchup-specific conundrum there, if you will. So, fine with him still where he's 37, but I do think also he engenders a bit more ownership than he should necessarily have. And again, was great last time where the ownership was going to be nil and to pivot off popular guys. Today, I would probably rather look elsewhere. Makes a lot of sense. On FanDuel, for example, one of my favorite plays of the day is Richaun Holmes. I don't think anyone else is ready to go back there. And he's power forward and 30-something again. I actually really like Richaun Holmes. It is one of my favorite plays in tournaments on the day on FanDuel. So I'll get out in front of that one.
Okay. Why? Why Richaun Holmes? Just the usage left behind. I mean, Kelly Oubre, a big beneficiary. Josh Jackson, a little bit less so. Ayton's pretty much flat with Booker off the floor. Why is Holmes your guy?
Because I think Ayton, who I believe has never stepped on the court with Rudy Gobert, is going to get somewhat of a rude welcome. I think you get Ayton either in some combination of A, getting in foul trouble, B, just looking really bad, or C, the team getting destroyed and getting blown out and sitting down, even though those minutes have been healthy recently. I don't think they'd necessarily pass on the spot to give him a rest and give Richaun some more time. But he's everything I'm looking for in a FanDuel tournament punt, which is low-owned, huge upside position. I don't really like any of the prices of any of the players at. Yeah, so I mean, he's really the ideal FanDuel punt for me. It's not so much that I think he is brilliant. As a matter of fact, I really like DeAndre Ayton on DraftKings, where he's 6,500. Gobert has been incredible at guarding the rim this year, but Ayton's been very good in other difficult matchups. And Gobert's defensive acumen manifests itself in a lot of ways, but not as much in the others at the reduction of points scored by the opposing centers. He makes it. I mean, his brilliance for this team is, it's a lot of things, but basically it's the fact that the other team really can't drive for shit, so the rest of the team just stops the other team from getting three-pointers, and this is the modern NBA where you're only supposed to take three-pointers and layups, and if he stops them from taking layups and the rest of the team stops them from taking three-pointers, hey, that works pretty well. That's the 10-second version of why the Jazz defense can be ridiculous. But I don't hate Ayton over there. But it's just the fact that I can see a lot of ways that Holmes hits the upside. I don't think he ends up owned more than 5 or 6% on FanDuel, and that's what I'm looking for. And I really like him either against Stars or against the bench unit there. So at 3,800 specifically on FanDuel, yeah, I'm a big fan of Richaun Holmes.
Okay, fair enough. That's a good case made. I don't know if it's because your Gordon Hayward case yesterday, but a strong case nonetheless.
It'll take a lot to be as good as the Gordon Hayward case yesterday. That's like winning a GPP for me now that I'm legally prescribed from playing. Is the rare times I get to sit down, shit on the chalkiest play on the slate, give a 10-minute explanation why, say what I think is going to happen instead, and have all those things turn out to be right. That's an orgasm with a bow on it for me. So that was
hard to put a bow on an orgasm, but you've done it.
That was a good time. Yes, but easier to have an orgasm when you have a bow on.
We're getting some questions about the Spurs. Obviously, you mentioned them briefly. You said it seemed like you're not that bullish on them, at least as a chalk play.
Well,
tell me about your thoughts on the Spurs here. Obviously, they're going to have to do a lot of scoring to keep up with the Warriors. Very short-handed without DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge in the lineup. Both guys are resting, as Eddie mentioned. It's the front end of a back-to-backs for them. I'm intrigued by the Spurs, but I think them being so highly owned certainly is an inhibitor. How are you feeling about these guys, and I guess which, if any of them, are the ones you'd want to have?
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So you go back over several years of Popovich screwing with us and doing stuff like this. And it has extended frequently in games where he sits a number of his starters, especially against high-ranked opponents in the middle of the season, where he really treats it as a game away. Basically, about 40 or, and what I mean by that is about 40 or 50% of the time, he just completely throws in the towel and completely gives up on everyone's minutes and just makes sure all the kiddies play and really gives away. I will give you the closest approximate example I have. I didn't download the date when I downloaded everything else, but at the time they were playing the Rockets, who were 53-14, so I'm presuming we were looking about the second week of March based on that record. The Spurs, who were very much in contention at this point, they were 37-29 or something going into this game, and would eventually make the playoffs and play Golden State, point of fact, were going in there, and they said, okay, we are going to sit Aldridge and sit somebody else I can't remember. And in that game, they started Rudy Gay, Patty Mills, Pau Gasol, DeJounte Murray, who the part of today will be played by Bryn Forbes, and Kyle Anderson, who has obviously moved on. Now, that game was an 11-point game at halftime, to give you some context, and never got beyond like a 21-point game and ended at 16. These starters played 24, 15, 9, 15, and 20 minutes. No one was in foul trouble, and he has done this, to my memory, at least 3 times over the last 3 years, and it was always on a back-to-back. It was frequently on the road, and he just goes, yeah, I don't care, find me. It's just like, it's one of those things where it's just like, I am just going to give this game up. The bench, by the way, if you're curious, the bench minutes, 15, 19, 20, 19, 16, 25, 14, and 32 minutes for Brandon Paul. Played 32 minutes in that game. The part of which would be Lonnie Walker today. That's today's Lonnie Walker if you want to be cute. So I could talk about this for about a half hour. I have a half dozen more examples, but I will say there is a 60% chance that everything you expect doesn't happen. That you get 2/3 or less time out of Bryn Forbes and Patty Mills and Rudy Gay and we'll say Pau Gasol if he gets the start, and whatever the hell else happens. I think that is more likely than not. Is it possible that this game plays close? And again, this game wasn't that much of a blowout, and he still said, fuck it. But is it possible that this Spurs team goes into this Golden State 5 to this year 4 all-star team, missing 3 of their best 4 players, and keeps this game close enough, and Pop doesn't say fuck it, and runs these guys out, and you get 30 minutes of Rudy Gay and 35 minutes of Davis Bertans and 30 minutes of Bryn Forbes and 30 minutes of Marco Bellinelli and 30 minutes of Patty Mills and 28 minutes of Jakob Poeltl behind 20 minutes of Pau Gasol, and they play this the way they would to win. Yeah, that's about 40% likely. But if I'm building one lineup, I may be punting Lonnie Walker, who I'm not shocked to see 24, 28 minutes in this game at all. Again, in this closest simulacrum we have, we got 32 minutes out of Brandon Paul. It's the exact same thing. I don't mind Jakob Poeltl, who just is going to have to occupy the court for some serious time regardless. He's like 3,200. That makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. Poeltl probably my favorite play on this team. I don't mind playing Rudy Gay because the upside is obscene. Like, he has a very significant upside. In the event this game stays close, I'd like Rudy Gay to put up like 47 fantasy points for his $6,000. So I really like Rudy Gay. So I'm almost willing to take the risk there. But I think people do underestimate the chance that Pop just basically says, nah, fuck this. I have no interest. Find me. And you will just get this game where he's not resting Rudy Gay, but he's going to rest Rudy Gay. He's not resting Marco Bellinelli, but he's going to rest Marco Bellinelli. And this team, puts out a roster where you get, I'm trying to remember some of, I've got, it's not, I'm trying to remember who the hell is still actually with the team, but Chimezie Metu is with the team. Yeah, Chimezie Metu is with the team. I'm trying, and you just get everyone out there playing 20 minutes. So they have probably 11 guys with the team. I would be shocked if they didn't all play. So anyhow, that is my take. The matchup is pretty nightmarish for everyone but a couple of them. It's not even like, putting, if you get Jakob Poeltl out there starting, it's not like, him getting his shit pushed in by DeMarcus Cousins is necessarily an environment that's conducive to growth. So, like, There's all kinds of ways this shit just goes really, really sideways. So I totally understand going, wow, look at all this usage and time opening up. And the pace is perfectly decent. And again, especially FanDuel, where you can dump these guys. Yeah, play Patty Mills. Play Marco Bellinelli. Play Bryn Forbes. If it goes squirrely and they play 18 minutes, then, you dropped them. I'm really nervous about stacking the shit out of them. Like, I'm nervous about playing two of those guys because I think there's a real chance that there's no one on... Like, if you put a gun to my head right now and say, who plays 24 minutes? It's probably
I'd say Bertans.
Probably Bertans. Yeah, it's probably... Ebert. It's probably Davis gets out there and gets the time. And I like him. And a shooter's going to shoot, but... they're not going to be efficient as an offense, and I believe in Popovich. I love him. I'd vote for him for president. Popovich, Kerr 2020. But I'm clearly much lower on this team than everyone else. But if you were inclined to go here, for me, it is probably an order of interest. Since we don't have a lineup yet, probably barely Jakob Poeltl, then Lonnie Walker, then Rudy Gay, where you're just spending up for what I consider to be an absolute crushing upside. So then people say, okay, what about Golden State on the flip side? Yeah, the thing is they do very similar Popovich things in the blowout, and that you don't get anyone getting huge amounts of minutes or usage. Like, we have tons of games where they blow people out, and it's really rare that you see, wow, Quinn Cook got 30. It just doesn't happen. Jordan Bell got up to 28. Like, you're like, what do you think about Kevon Looney? I don't like him at all now, because Cousins is going to get his shifts, or all of them, -1, and Looney, go look at their last blowout when they beat, they just won a game by like 35. But go look at their last blowout, and Looney comes out at the end so that Bell can come in and play 7 minutes. And so, I'd rather play Rashawn Holmes on FanDuel, as I've made clear. But I'm dubious of this game ending up being that great for anyone. Obviously, there's all the upside in the world. You want to play Bellinelli, Bertans. I don't think I'm going to Dante Cunningham in this spot, but Gay, Gasol, if you get the news that he's starting. Although I would literally, if we found out in a minute Pau Gasol was expected to be starting, I would put his minutes at 14. I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And he'd be really popular. I don't want to do that. So, all right. So that's enough on that. There's my take on what I think happens here. I think it goes all kinds of sideways.
It's a graceful transition now to the little halftime daddy likes. Of course, if you use a promo code LiveBeforeLock on Awesemo.com, get 50% off of your first month of any package there. So drop that in there now. Get all the ownership projections, which we discuss ad nauseum, because that is the key part of making lineups here, as well as rankings from Awesemo's top player in the world. Josh Engelman's projections, you just plug right in. And, of course, Eddie's rankings as well, so you could follow along and see what his thoughts are before we even get there. So use that promo code LiveBeforeLock now. Get 50% off. It's halftime, so let's do a little halftime daddy likes. Ownership just got updated. So let's see. This one's for Llama Trainer. Let's see what daddy likes today. You wanted it weird? You're going to get it extra weird, Llama Trainer. Mason Plumlee at number 1, Eddie, 33%. How does daddy feel about that one?
More, please. Yeah, daddy likes that. He's got those muscly arms. I haven't done that impression in a while. That sounds pretty good.
If anybody's going to bring it out, Mason Plumlee should be the one with this milky, fleshy, muscular
like
arms.
Popsicles? Then you better come on down to the cellar, because I got a whole freezer full of popsicles. There we go. Took me a minute to find it. Yeah, I like a lot. It's really hard to imagine he's going to fail. The matchup is really good. It ends up being site dependent. You got 5K on FanDuel, and that's tougher and center. But DK, Yahoo, the price is superlative. It's really good. I think he spends the time. Even though I think in general you play this out 100 times, even if the games stay close, he gets less time than he does against Detroit. It's not enough that I still don't project him for north of 30, and that just feels pretty good. So if 33 is the right number, I would want a bit more. Obviously the numbers come up a little bit, but especially 44 on DK, and 13 I think is the nut on Yahoo. Yeah, I'd want a bit more.
Yep, I'm with you on there. Big Plumlee guy. Going to jam in some lineups as we speak. Davis Bertans, number 2 on the list at 32%. How does daddy feel about that one?
I'll go under. 32%, there's just a lot of guys who I think can pick up a better upside. Davis Bertans will have his production highly correlated with how effective the offenses. And I don't expect the offense to be as effective, pretty clearly, without those other guys. So he's a shooter. He's a brilliant shooter. I don't know what he's shooting from 3 now, but he's close to leading the NBA in 3-point percentage. And can grab some rebounds. I don't think he's horrific, but I need someone to spike in upside. I don't think he's going to give me, 36 against the Warriors, which is what I think people are out there hunting for. So I would probably look to other guys in tournaments. So I'd come in under that. I don't mind having some exposure, but that's more than I'd want.
I assume it's going to be a similar answer for this one, but Marco Bellinelli at number 3 with 30% projected ownership on DraftKings. How does Daddy feel about that one?
Yep, same thing. I'm not shocked if I'll project him at 18 minutes. Gun to my head right now, how many minutes does he play? At least 2 of the 3 or 4 games we're alluding to, Pop rested people in the middle of the game without telling anyone. Where it was just like, oh, you didn't check in. Cool. We're just like, Patty Mills would just not check in, and they'd go to other guys. But so, I'm not surprised if you get... I mean, I don't think it's likely. But there's a 10 to 20% chance that Bellinelli just doesn't play, and he just didn't feel like telling anyone. So, yep, definitely under on that guy. Again, I like him just fine, but again, like Bertans, this is a team that... This entire team functions on sick efficiency. Okay, the Spurs function on just shooting incredibly well and having a really brilliant offense that functions wonderfully, and I don't think they can make it work against this Spurs team right now. Could be wrong. I love Popovich. If he can make this work and keep this game close, I'm going to be... But they literally are the most accurate team in the league from everywhere on the goddamn floor. And I don't think they can do it when they're missing the 2 big threats. I just don't think they can get the offense moving. For lack of a better term. So, yep, I'll go under on him too. I'll be under on all the Spurs. So if we're about to hit Jakob Poeltl and Pau Gasol and Rudy Gay, I'll save you some time.
No, number 4. This may be a bit of a curveball. Zach LaVine, 29% projected ownership for that game at home versus the Pelicans.
Yeah, he is too cheap. I like all those Bulls in that game. Obviously, I think the Bulls are favored, which oven by itself is not something I thought I'd be saying many times this year, but I prefer Markkanen in the spot. So it all ends up being price, dependent. On Yahoo, I'd rather save whatever it is, $5, $6, and play and play LaVine at that price. I don't like Markkanen that much more. FanDuel Power Forward's pretty shitty, so I like him more than Draymond. So if I can, come up with those $300, I would rather go. I have Markkanen as my highest scorer on this team. I'll place it that way. So, but LaVine at that DK price is underpriced. So we had him at what, 24, something like that? Did you say?
That's 29.
I'll go under that. Around 24 would have been about the number I want. So don't mind it. That's not a terrible play for me. But I would probably have a little less than that. I imagine I'd be under the field on LaVine, over the field on Markkanen.
All right, and number 5 to close out the halftime Daddy likes, Jakob Poeltl, 25% ownership.
Yeah, I don't want it then. 25%, that's enough that I'll go look somewhere else. I like Jakob Poeltl too. I like the Turtle. Shout out Laffy, who I think gave him that nickname, Poeltl the Turtle. But Jakob Poeltl, yeah, that's no thanks. I'd rather play Lonnie Walker then. I'll go that way.
So here's an interesting question from Rinpack, and I think based on your stance with the Spurs, it might be a tough one. Is there enough optimal value to play Harden and Jokic together on DK?
So, I mean, there is always enough value to do it. The question is there enough value to do it without screwing yourself? My guess is that there is. I really like Tim Hardaway Jr. in the absence of any knowledge. And again, that is a later game, and Harden is a later game. So, you can set this up where if Hardaway doesn't start, for example, okay, then you pivot and have a plan. But assuming Hardaway starts, then I think he plays 30-something minutes, and I have him for more north of 30 fantasy points. I really, really like him in that spot. I will say I would probably rather play Doncic and Jokic than Harden and Jokic. I like Harden a lot. I have Harden for 69 fantasy points, which is obviously nice. But I have Doncic for almost 55. I really like Doncic, and I think people will be kind of averse to paying. I expect the ownership to be really low too. He may be less owned than Harden because people just see the price and go, "Oh, that's a lot." It's really not. It was just stupid before. Like, with the way this team is comprised now in a matchup that I really like, he's a 50-night scorer. Like, he's a better fantasy basketball player right now than Devin Booker, than Bradley Beal. Like, he is a better spend-up option than those guys in a neutral environment. I consider this to be a positive environment. So, I like Doncic a lot. So I would be more inclined to do that. But I like Maxi Kleber, who I think starts and plays 28 to 30 minutes at center in an environment that I'm certainly not worried about. I think that's good value. So, all those guys are in the fours, but, I imagine you can play Tim Hardaway Jr., Mason Plumlee, Maxi Kleber, and Lonnie Walker the fourth, alongside Harden and Jokic, and have enough money left for those other spots where you're spending 5-6K. So you've got Jeff Green or Jared Allen or Willie Cauley-Stein or Brook Lopez or any of those other guys. So, no, my gut, without delaying the show for 5 minutes and testing it, is that, yes, you could make that happen.
All right. Quick question about the Nuggets we talked about up top, and I want to get your kind of overall view on things, because I think we spent a lot of time on these key items and probably need to hit on a bunch of stuff. Somebody was asking about Jamal Murray and his presence. Do you think that's going to affect Will Barton too much, where Barton would be unplayable?
Well, he's already been much worse than I expected in this environment, and I don't have a good reason why. Which I just like to say when I don't. I would have expected him to have been better, and I haven't seen the specific evidence for countermanding that. One thing is obviously the minutes, where he's not even necessarily getting 30 all the time. At the start of the day, I was a pretty big fan on FanDuel, 5,500, small forward. I like that number. I like that position a lot. But having Murray in is a downgrade for him. There is still an upside there for him. He can absolutely smash that in this position. So I like him more if you're not playing Jokic. I'm concerned with the spot, and I don't think having Murray back in would be considered a positive development. So yeah, I would agree. It doesn't, and not significant. I mean, if I give you my projection for Barton, which I don't have up in front of me, but it would be something like 28 minutes and 28 and a half fantasy points in a vacuum, and then you go, Jamal Murray is back, and it probably went down to 27.9. Like, it's not something that is going to, reshape the wheel. It's a 2% difference. But yeah, it's not. You're not happy that Jamal Murray is back in, just because you're hoping for more of him handling the ball and bringing it up and just calling his own number, which happens not as frequently as I'd like, obviously, but does happen.
Yep, I'm with you there. Moses Guthrie in the premium Slack. Again, that's also a feature. If you get that promo code live before lock, get your 50% off of the first month. What about Doncic and Hardaway together for DK? How do you feel about that one?
No problem at all. FanDuel obviously is a giant issue, and the FanDuel price isn't nearly as receptive. But he's $4,900 on DK, and Charlotte is one of my preferred matchups for him, if you will. So if you will, Dusty Rose style. But yeah, so I that doesn't bother me at all. You're stacking the game a little bit, I suppose, but yeah, two guys, they probably positively correlate more than negatively, but it'd be very close. So.
All right. Again, some questions about the Kings here. How do you feel about Cauley-Stein and Bagley? Do they negatively correlate? They've been playing a little bit together, but Bagley also taking some minutes away from Cauley-Stein at times. How are you feeling about both their prospects? And I guess tell me a little bit more about the correlation and the rest of the Kings. How are you feeling about them going into Houston?
What's our ownership on them on DK? Where they're, 58 and 55 or whatever?
Let's see. Bagley's at 19% ownership right now, so he's come down a little bit throughout the day. Cauley-Stein at 16%.
I was going to say 15, yeah. I would slightly prefer Cauley-Stein between the two of them. He's a little more dangerous. But he is lower owned, and that's, Bagley has looked good, and his star is a little more on the rise. But it's a matchup I absolutely love for Cauley-Stein. It's amazing, because if Capella is in, I hate him in this spot. With Freed in there, I absolutely love him in this spot. And again, he's my favorite over Jared Allen, who I really like. I think Jared Allen pushes for more time here. And it is really, I really like Jared Allen, and I really like Brook Lopez. Again, both of those can go sideways pretty easily. So can Willie Cauley-Stein, but a little less likely than those. But all three of those guys are guys who I'm not surprised to see get 40-something tonight. You either need the game to stay close or you need the minutes to show up in the case of Cauley-Stein. But I would slightly rather play Cauley-Stein than Bagley. They negatively correlate more than they positively correlate. Like, there's the multiverse theory. There's basically any number of ways the game can go. There are a lot of scenarios in which having the both of them would help you. The most obvious would be the game goes to overtime. Hey, I've got both of them and they're both on the court, we'll say, and they do share the court for quite a bit of time. But more frequently, they would negatively correlate. So you don't want the other one if you have one, but I don't find it so negative that having them both would kill me. But you're moving a little bit towards stacking the game, so you'd want to run it back with, say, Chris Paul or James Harden, probably most notably.
Nariki in the premium Slack asking, who would be your top 5 value plays of the slate?
Please clarify with a site or something. But
nope, that's it. That's all you
all right, well, I'll sort of off the top of my head and say Mason Plumlee, Maxi Kleber, Tim Hardaway Jr. We'll assume we're talking about that site. Rashawn Holmes, maybe you're playing on FanDuel, so I'll throw him out there. You're not nice enough to specify, then I will make some shit up. If you're playing on FanDuel, so I don't mind Frank Jackson on FanDuel. He's 3,700. You can obviously throw it in the trash. Real chance that, he gets back over 35 minutes or something. The environment is obviously stellar. He's going to start. We've had that confirmed. So, the Pelicans came out with their lineup. They're starting Jackson Holiday, Darius Miller, Kenrich Williams, and Okafor. I don't mind any of those guys. I probably, it's going to end up being site dependent. I don't hate Drew Holiday. Like, I haven't projected for 44, and seeing 55 out of him here, it doesn't kill me. It's tough in a world where on FanDuel, I really like Buddy Hield at shooting guard. I really like Luka, obviously, where he's a little better priced on FanDuel relative to their scale. But that certainly works. I don't mind D'Angelo Russell, and I expect his ownership to be nice and low. So this is certainly a spot where I think the ceiling is still there for D. Russ. So and he is the pure reason why this team is playing so much faster.
While you're mentioning Nets, how about Alan Crabb returning to the lineup at 4,100 on DK? He's been looking good in the G League, reports are saying. Apparently pretty close to full health. How are you feeling about him as a value play?
No.
I didn't expect him to be such a hard no.
I don't give the flat no very often. No. There's absolutely no chance I'm Alan Crabbing it on his first day back. Like, Alan Crabb on any random day, maybe. Like, and this is a decent matchup for it. And you've got Gary Harris out, which makes it. But how many minutes you really think you're getting out of Alan Crabb tonight? Like, I'll guess 18. Maybe you get 24. He's not starting. They throw all the minutes they can at Harris. I mean, they came out with that starting lineup 5 minutes ago, and I think it's the same one they've been running with Harris. They're running Harris. They're starting Graham. It's Harris, Graham, and Kurucs starting at the 2-3-4. No thanks. Like, it's way too crowded. So just flat no for me. I will be willing to accept the 1% of the days that Alan Crabb gets 24 plus minutes, and the 1% of those days where he gets 25 plus fantasy points. I'm willing to risk it.
Do you have any thoughts on Iman Shumpert for a DK GPP? He's been a guy, the deeper dive guys talked about it at some length, but it's something I also observed is that it seems like he's taking minutes directly away from Bogdan Bogdanovic, and it's probably defensive reasons. And I think you're going to see a lot of Shumpert minutes today because somebody's got to guard James Harden or at least try.
Yeah,
again, it's first crack.
Yeah, it's been a good week again. I mentioned Shumpert before his last big game. Someone asked me who I wanted, and I said someone asked like Gerald Green. I'm like, I would play Shumpert instead, and then that randomly came true. So. Perilously low floor. But yeah, it is for defensive reasons. Bogey has seemed like 20 and 23 minutes, I want to say, over the last 2 games, which is obviously not encouraging, but they just don't need him out there. And so certainly it's a very Torrey Craig-like situation where you end up just seeing more of Shumpert where he's necessary to deal with, for example, James Harden. And we just saw, for example, a bigger Torrey Craig game for the Nugs when James Harden was out there, and not surprisingly, that's who Sacramento has today. So you would think it would be a game where Shumpert's minutes are a little safer, and yeah, I would rather play him than a lot of these Spurs guys. It's going to be 5% ownership as opposed to 30 apparently, and 3,900 if I recall correctly is the number on Shumpert. I'd be fine with that in tournaments. Yeah.
Any thoughts on Fareed and Okafor, 2 popular big men plays today for a DK GPP?
Yeah, I'm gonna slightly side with Okafor there. I think the matchup is a little bit better. I think the odds of foul trouble are a little bit smaller. Um, Obviously, again, these end up being price dependent as you move site by site, but I don't mind either of them. Randall is back and is going to play off the bench. That gives me some pause, but I'll still be slightly larger on Okafor between the two of them. But nothing wrong with either. I'm not guys I'm targeting. I do find myself a little more drawn to some of those 5K guys on DK, where I think they also carry 40-plus point upside. Yeah, I have no issue with either of those guys. Slight preference for Okafor if they cost the exact same amount.
Yeah, I like both of them too. Okafor intrigued. He 30 points in that half, or 30 fantasy points rather than half against Indiana, and like that came on fast. He had a really bad first quarter, and he just killed
He's
him.
done really well in like quality in like difficult matchups. So I think Randall plays at the 4 and at the 5. I think it imperils Kenrich Williams, if I had to guess, more than Okafor.
And Check Diallo too has been getting some pretty decent minutes.
Yeah, Check Diallo probably gets almost entirely expurgated from the rotation. Nuggets starting who we thought they were: Murray, Beasley, Barton, Plumlee, and Joker.
All right, let's see here. I guess any other notes you want to hit on before we run through a bunch of questions?
Yeah, we're around 10 minutes. I like Ricky Rubio a lot. The FanDuel price is even a little bit better. There is a risk because he's one of a number of guys who we can worry about possibly getting traded today. There's a couple trades in the works. So again, I'm going into full note scanning mode because I really want to be prepared to pivot, because this is probably the day more likely than any other day of the year that we will get late scratch news or some shit. But that is the last thing I would mention, is we should be a little more inclined towards players who don't have significant trade risk. And of all the guys I like today, the only one who I think has, a really significant chance of being moved by the deadline, and it's been discussed in multiple, deal situations, that I think I've talked about liking, who hasn't already been traded, obviously, would have been Ricky Rubio. So I like Ricky Rubio, but, 15% chance he doesn't play tonight. Ballpark, maybe 10. But there's a non-0% chance that he just kicks you right in the jimmy. So DraftKings, no concern, just watch your shit. FanDuel, I like him a lot. But, double-digit chance that he doesn't step on the court, so that should probably concern you somewhat. I like Chris Paul, again, a fair bit. One lineup I'd be more likely to run Chris Paul than James Harden.
Oh, really?
If I'm building one lineup on DK, yes. Or if I was building 150 lineups, I'd have more Paul than Harden. Maybe not. Be really interesting. I like Jokic so much. It would be interesting. One lineup I would have Jokic, which makes me think I would be less inclined to have Harden. And I'd want a piece of that game. And I would probably have Willie Cauley-Stein. So, yeah, I imagine I would have Chris Paul in my one lineup and not James Harden. I like them, I suppose, about even amounts. But I like Chris Paul a lot. He played 33 minutes in that last game. That's enough for me to be pretty excited about that. Not a back-to-back or anything. He's good. I think he gets you 40. I'll take 40.
Any interest for you with Randall coming off the bench, particularly on DK?
No. I would play none. I need Randall. Look, Randall is phenomenal. Could he get you 50 in 24 minutes in this matchup? Yes. But I think he ends up being... I don't know. If he's like 1% owned, I like it. I have a feeling he's like 8% owned, and I don't think I like it. Like, he has shown his ability, especially with a bunch of nobodies around on the court with him, to just go the hell off, and the matchup is pristine. So, I get the line of thinking, but I just think there's lots of other bigs I like. And, I don't know what the odds are that he really gets there. He needs to get me 40, right? I don't think I can project him for much more than 30, and that's what makes me nervous. So, maybe. I mean, I'm gonna spend some more time right now looking for news, see if I can find anything else. That's one thing I'm interested in. If we get a minutes limit and they say he's gonna play 24 minutes, I'd have some interest. Without any specificity right now, I'm worried they really take it easy, especially because I know they say minutes restriction is the only thing that I've heard. I'm looking for something more specific right now. If I find it, I'll let you know. But just knowing that they've specifically said we're going to limit his minutes, when he plays off the bench, he only plays 27 minutes. So if they're restricting that, what does that mean to you? So right now, I'll project Randall for 21 minutes. that's not enough for me. So that's my take.
Any thoughts on the Suns guys who are filling in for Devin Booker with him out? Obviously,
Thanks.
some blowout risk for Utah, but
yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I can't believe I didn't think specifically to touch on that. My favorite of those, it'll be site dependent. My favorite two are gonna end up being Oubre and McCall Bridges. I do like Oubre a couple points more than Josh Jackson, and in the most recent blowout, you did have Oubre out there at the end, and not Josh Jackson, irrespective of foul trouble. So, Oubre and McCall, the two guys I like the most, and again, shout out to my guy Rashawn Holmes, more of a FanDuel specific play for me. 3 for blocks and steal. Like he's really the perfect. I guess I'm super excited to play him, and he will fail 80% of the time, but. Giant ceiling there, real easy to see how the minutes could show up. I like him more on FanDuel with 3 for blocks and steals. Real possibility of him getting in there due to trouble with Ayton or foul trouble or game blowing out, or like there's all sorts of ways that it happens. So I'm really excited for what I expect to be a super, super low-owned Rashawn Holmes play on FanDuel. But price dependent, I like Oubre as my favorite guy in that game now. With a second to McCall Bridges pretty significantly. So on DK, where it's like, I want to say 58 and 46 for those two guys, those are about the right numbers. I'm happy with those numbers. They're more on FanDuel, where I'm much less excited about playing them, and it's certainly not an environment that's conducive to a lot of fantasy production. But yeah, those are the guys I like there the most. You can punt with a Kobo, that's fine. But a bit of a desperation play. But I'd probably like it a little more than some of the Spurs guys. I have more confidence in a Kobo, and that's really saying something because I have very little confidence in a Kobo.
How much? Actually, here's a question. Raw points. How much more do you love Jokic over Giannis on DK?
I have him projected for 1.5 points more. So counting their salaries, that's a reasonably significant differential. But that's that is the nuts and bolts of it. 4 minutes. We are coming down to it, kids.
So you talked about the Phoenix value. People asking for a take on the Kings again one more time. Who do you like besides, I guess, the bigs that we talked about at a little more length?
I don't mind De'Aaron Fox at 7,200 on DK. I think that's fine, but I don't love it. He's a reasonable tournament play. I'm very ambivalent on it. I don't mind playing a reduced price Bogdan, although I do think the minutes are more likely to flow to Shumpert. I like playing Shumpert. I like playing Willie Cauley-Stein. I like playing Bagley a little less than Willie Cauley-Stein. I don't hate Bielitsa in a tournament. I really like Healed also, especially on FanDuel. So DK, I would probably rank my preference Cauley-Stein, Bagley, Healed, Shumpert.
All right.
Bielitsa, someone asked in a FanDuel GPP, that's just fine. He's 37 or whatever the hell that number is. There's enough ways that can work out that I'm perfectly fine with that.
Would you go Oubre and Lonnie Walker or Forbes and Mikal Bridges for a DK single entry?
The first one, Oubre and Lonnie.
Healed and Bagley or Holiday and Lyles for FanDuel cash?
Healed and Bagley or Holiday and Lyles, is that it?
Yep.
I mean, it's a little bit dependent on what other drops you have, but we'll say Healed and Bagley more often than not will be my answer. It sort of depends on how many punts you have, but Healed and Bagley more often than not of those two options.
Okay. Let's see. Is Houston and Sacramento the best game to stack?
Best is always a little bit subjective. If I had to pick a game, I'm stacking one of these games. I probably think Washington and Milwaukee is a slightly better game to stack. I don't mind stacking either of those games, but I think that's where I would be most likely to come down.
Okay. Let's see. Brook Lopez or Willie Cauley-Stein at center on DK?
Again, I will take Willie Cauley-Stein. I really like Brook Lopez. I like Brook Lopez, Willie Cauley-Stein, and Jared Allen on DK quite a bit. I think they're all tremendous tournament plays. I really like all three of those guys. My favorite is Willie Cauley-Stein, but that's yeah.
For a FanDuel GPP, would you go Harden and Jokic or Curry and Giannis?
Harden and Jokic.
For a DK GPP, would you go Mikal Bridges or Joe Harris? I assume it's Mikal and not Miles.
Yep, Mikal Bridges pretty significantly.
Okay. Let's See any new questions? For cash, would you go Giannis and Lyles or Jokic and Forbes?
Jokic and Forbes.
Okay. Let's see. I think, did you already answer? Yeah, you did. Bielitsa and Favors or Bertans and Kleber for a FanDuel GPP? Or Bielitsa or Jeff Green, apparently. There's lots of choices.
I'm sorry, again, I lost my various options there in the middle. I was good until you threw some subs.
Yeah, there were three, and the or was tacking at the end. Bielitsa and Favors, Bertans and Kleber, or Bielitsa and Jeff Green for FanDuel?
Probably Bielitsa and Jeff Green.
Plumlee or Kleber for a DK GPP?
I'm fine with Kleber in that case. Plumlee the better cash option. I'm projected for like 5 more fantasy points. But that being said, Kleber is still a perfectly juicy play. And we are locked.
Any thoughts on Luka and Drew for a GPP when we're locked?
Yeah, I like both of those players. You're saving a little bit going to Drew, and I have him, projected about 5 fantasy points less, or actually about 8 fantasy points less. I slightly prefer Luka based on what I was guessing their ownerships were going to be, but I think they're both fine plays. But I'd be more inclined to play Luka. I think enough people bounce off that price, but certainly wouldn't be too worried wherever you landed. I'll put it that way.
All right, there we go. So we're locked. Let's see. Now that we're a little live in the field, we got at least one game to check. See what Daddy likes. See what old Mason Plumlee's up to.
All right. I'm endeavoring to load. I am not logged in.
It is. Oh, by the way, it's America's favorite game. I forgot to say that.
I can't believe you forgot to say that.
I didn't sell the America's favorite game.
Hopefully, no one takes that seriously. Let me point out that the Supreme Court has roundly said that parody and satire are immune from. Oh well.
I think we also set a viewership record again. The deeper dive guys and we did too. I think we crossed another 1,700 and something barrier. I didn't see what we got up to, but make sure to hit that like button, please. If you're in the video, like it. Just come in and hit like. Love of God, please.
Yeah, no, it's been I didn't want to talk about it before because we were limited on time, but yeah, crazy good week. Shout out, Brendan, I think it was yesterday, who took home 100K and had a really. So he sends me a tweet with about 10 minutes left in the slate with just the final Heat and Portland game going. He's like, dude, I am so upset. Look at my lineup, and I almost entered the $100 contest that they had last night. And my friend showed me the scoreboard. I would be winning it. And he sends me his lineup, and he's got like 372 or something on DK. And I'm like, oh, that sucks. That is the worst. And that is the worst. My worst beat ever in the history of my DFS career was 4 years ago or so when I'm playing every day on DraftKings, and I was simply playing one lineup. And I would put it in my whatever $1,000 in cash at the beginning of the day, and then I would go back later and enter in GPPs. And of the 200 days I played basketball in that year, I did that 198 of them, in which back then there was tons of overlay all the time. So I was always I was usually playing $1,000 in cash and $200 or $300 in GPPs at that point. And I would change the GPPs based on what was overlaying. So I would go back at 6:55 and bounce through the sites, including that one, and go join this. And I might join more or less if there was extra overlay, whatever. And for whatever reason, on that day, my daughter or the dog or my wife, I wasn't at my computer, so I didn't rejoin GPP. So all I entered was $1,000 in cash and the free roll, which I always entered every day to get data from and download from. Well, I won the free roll.
Oh.
I beat the 35,000 entries in the free roll. So I don't know exactly how much that cost me. Low end 50 grand, high end 300 grand. So yeah, sucks. That one's the worst. So he sends me this lineup and goes, I literally was thinking about joining the 100 and I decided to just before log. I decided not to. And I'm like, oh, that really sucks, man. And then I write him back 5 seconds later and go, this seems like a great lineup. Whatever you entered, if you entered any GPPs, you should currently be taking in some serious rake. And then someone else who was watching the thread responds, he's currently winning the $10.
Oh.
And the guy's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I just checked. You're fading 4 points from Dwayne Wade to take down $100,000. And he's like, dude, I'm losing my shit. And I'm like, yeah. So, fun story. The guy tweeted me going, man, I'm so bummed. And then he won $100,000. So, I think he feels...
So, strong correlation between depression and big GPP wins.
Yeah, I think he feels better. Let me try again. I downloaded the thing, and the thing was empty. Much like my soul. Yeah. Is DK busted or something? I
don't know.
don't know what's going
It's
on
looking okay.
here. Can anyone... Okay, let me go back. Again, I'm not actually playing anything because I'm not allowed to, but it's apparently ownership, like, not visible. Anyone
Oh, I didn't play Plumlee in cash. I should just fucking kick myself in the ass.
Am I right, though, that no one can see ownership for anything on DK?
Let's see. I
You're
don't have
live, so
anybody on that one. Let's see. In the shoot around, do I have anybody? I assume I have Plumlee here. Oh yeah, no ownership on DK right now.
Something is busted. Let's look at FanDuel. We'll go back and look in a second. Well, we will... minor format change in America's favorite game. Let's, I gotta log into this one.
America loves it too much, and it's suffocating it like a jealous husband.
I was about to make a jealous husband joke, and you got it. All right, let's see. Apparently a $375,000 shot on FanDuel. Again, not thrilling names, but not objectively terrible. And there is ownership here, so just clicking through some lineups. Let's see. Jokic, 20%. That feels pretty good. Daddy likes that. I think I've been clear about that. Barton, a little 12er. A little 12 spot for Will the Thrill. That's still fine. Small forward, 5,500. Those things both make you happy. 8 for Shabazz. That's fine. Trey Lyles, 11. Yeah, see exactly. At 4,500 at 11% Trey Lyles. We have Millsap bet again. I'm not sure that plays the same way. Malik Beasley, 7%. That's fine there. Where he's 5,100, that is the best price of any of the Beasley Morris. And again, Murray is back, so Morris was less appealing. But 51 on FanDuel was the best price of any of those M guards for the Nugs. So 7% there is actually pretty nice, I think. Mason Plumlee, 30, which hard for me to argue with. I mean,
what big news. Otto Porter just got traded to the Bulls for Bobby Portis and Jabari Parker.
Okay, if that game hasn't started and you have late swap available, get those guys out. Hashtag analysis. Porter and Portis for Porter. Okay. Well, let's stay on the air and talk about this for a minute here.
Yeah. Also, Jeff Green looking extra tasty now.
Yep, yeah. So,
You're the reason too.
Both those games in play this evening as well. So let's talk about Chicago first and what we can reasonably expect out of their rotation. Oh, I do have them in my rotation database. Hold on a minute here. Let's take a look and see how we can expect this to go down. So Portis obviously was getting flippant minutes in any case anyway. The most likely... All right, so you're going to get 30 minutes of Robin Lopez now, which makes him not out of play in what I think is actually a pretty good spot still. So Robin Lopez now very much in play. They're just going to throw a lot of those minutes onto him. Past that, Parker's role was pretty ambivalent anyway. You're going to get more likely 18 minutes out of Shaq Harrison now. You may get, slightly extended minutes for the other starters. So it is a minor boost for Markkanen, who we already liked, and Levine, who we already liked, where he was well priced. So really not a ton of change for this team. We like all those starters guys a little bit more in what's a nice matchup, and it does make Robin Lopez a pretty interesting punt play now. And a pivot off more chalky guys. All the chalky guys have already really started. Looking at the Wizards, you're going to like this. It's good for Jordan McCrae.
Thank God.
But yeah, the news there is going to be that it is good for, slightly for Satoransky, but mostly Ariza, Beal, Sammy Decker is going to get some more time. Jeff Green is going to get some more time. Jordan McCrae probably is going to get some more time now. I don't think they add someone to the rotation. So Porter had been in, the starting lineup there. They probably now just start Jeff Green alongside those guys and probably just condense the bench down where you have Randall, Decker, McCrae. And it's probably a little more likely now that you see Mahinmi squeak back into the lineup, but not necessarily. Maybe they go down to just 8 guys. But the guys that makes me like the most are Beal gets a cookie now. I'll still take Luka, but with the price discrepancy, it's getting a little closer now. Jeff Green, probably the one I like the most, actually, now. $5,000 Jeff Green feels really good now. Don't hate Sato, minor cookie for him. A little more likely of a blowout, though, and I think you can be cute. A little more cute playing Jordan McCrae, a little more cute playing Sam Decker. So that's interesting. Big news. There it was. Came a minute after log instead of before, so I hope people did not randomly catch the screw on FanDuel. None of those guys were terribly brilliant FanDuel. The Bulls will start Dunn, Levine, Selden at the 3 as we expected, Markkanen, and Brolo.
Yeah, that's so like it's weird. I think there's some podcast. It was either one of the Ringer ones or Nate Duncan's one, but they were like, "Yeah, the Wizards are saying Otto Porter's untouchable for some reason."
He was untouchable.
I found it surprising.
He was untouchable last year. They got to be really excited. And again, it's. I'm looking forward to my trade deadline show tomorrow with the brilliant Josh Engelman. I'm running out of synonyms, but
he's known as the Chubster. Just call him the Chubster.
The Chubster. That was my nickname in college.
It's a nickname dating back to his childhood. Ask him about it tomorrow on the trade show.
God, okay. I'm a little scared. But yeah, you have to wonder how much of that is fueled by so they're kind of. I'm thinking of the contract. I'm trying to figure out how this fucking deal works. Portis' deal wasn't too bad. Jabari's deal was a giant pain in the balls. Porter's deal was a giant pain in the balls. Neither, is this. I'm trying to figure out what this trade is supposed to do. Most trades I look at, I'm like, oh, they're clearing camp, or they're doing this, or they're stocking the bench, or they're. The Wizards get a quality big or two. I guess this is supposed. It's really hard for me to think the Wizards look at this and go, "This makes us a better team." It's really interesting. I got to look up the contract numbers because it balances roughly dollar per dollar. Like again, Otto and all 3 of these guys were getting paid more money than you wanted to pay them, especially Jabari and Otto. So.
I don't get why the Bulls would commit that much salary to Otto Porter for 3 more years.
I think it's 2 more after this one, but yeah, he's got a number behind him, so that's really weird. Like if I found out that some picks were moving, that would make this make more sense for me, and I'm kind of expecting to see that because that's.
Face up Bobby Portis though, going to be a lot of fun to play when he's in that rotation.
Yeah, he should get plenty of time. Bad long term for your boy Jeff Green. Unrelated story.
I know. It's even moving to the starting lineup now. I don't know that he gets the 17, 18 shots because it's just going to be less available for him in that group.
Yeah, maybe. He's always he's a talented fantasy player. Always has been.
Yeah, and they're going to have to swing the ball around for the Bucks. So I think he's still fine. But yeah, I don't know. I liked him having that role. That second unit role for Jeff Green was really fun, and nobody was on him. It was just I felt like I had a little secret that nobody else was aware of.
Yeah. So again, on DraftKings' other site where there's some spare money to flow around, definitely reconsider, especially those Wizards guys. Let me go ahead and look and see if I can figure out what, assuming it is working again, what price Robin Lopez is. I'm not the world's biggest Robin Lopez guy, but now I think he probably plays 30 minutes, which makes me a little more excited. He's $4,000. Here's
a good question from Rinpack. Would you go Jeff Green or THJ now, knowing what we know?
Both, but I gotta go with Jeff Green now. I still like THJ quite a bit, but I'd have to go with Jeff Green now. I have to go with Jeff Green now. I just think now he's almost assuredly plays 32 minutes. Based on his recent play in the matchup, I think he takes 18, 19 shots. It feels pretty good. McCrae or a Kobo in a DK GPP? Yeah, living your best life. I'm rechecking our ownership on those 2 men. On a Kobo and
we did get an update. Yeah, McCrae. Yeah, McCrae's still under 1% according to our projections.
Kobo, 11%. McCrae, under 1. Well, I can take Jordan McCrae then.
All right. So there we go. So that's it. Anything else you want to hit on before we call this quits for the day?
No. I'll be back twice tomorrow, alongside Josh both times. Otto Porter ruled out. Yeah, no shit. So, update afterwards. Otto Porter won't play. Yes, that would be odd if they went, we're trading you. Would you like to just casually hoop? No? No. Okay. Is Felicio too crazy at stone minimum? No. He's going to get 48 minus Robin Lopez minutes. Like, I don't think they're going to run Markkanen at center out there. I don't think they're going to do that. So, no, I don't think it's too crazy on later slates. For the main, it's even not too crazy in that matchup. I don't mind him in tournaments at all. 3,000 for Felicio feels expensive for Felicio, but I think it could be worth it in this case.
Depends on the quality, I'm sure. But there we go. That's enough for today's slate. Hopefully, no more trades break before the rest of the slate starts. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hit that like button. We appreciate you guys coming out to support, helping us set viewership numbers and all that. It means a lot. So thank you so much for that, really and truly. Use the promo code LIBOR of course, to get 50% off of your first month of any package there. You can also get some night slate projections and ownership projections as well as rankings from Osmo. So go check it out now. The night slate can have some bumping stuff for everybody who maybe locked in Otto Porter and then is screwed on FanDuel. So go check that out now. And Eddie will be back tomorrow. I'll be on DK Live tomorrow, so watch that in concert. Have multiple devices. Watch all the shows together at once. Merge them, make them kiss.
It's also worth pointing out that the late slates, the 8 p.m. slates, are better buys now because people will have ownership on those players. They're just gonna.
Right, so
both those are 8 p.m. games, and that news broke at 7:35 or something. Those guys are, several of those players are going to be 2, 5, 7, 8, 10% owned. So you're going to get rakeless contests at 8 p.m. I would suggest playing them.
All right, so there you go. Take a little advice from Eddie there. He is the king of such strategy and game theory and all that. And we'll see you guys again soon. So hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll be back again very shortly. So good luck tonight.
Good luck, everybody.